Well, the Chinese are in a love-hate relationship with Gaokao, aren't they? I mean, for me, probably more hate than love, but they love it because with Gaokao, which is branded as one of the fairest tests in China, no matter what background you come from, if you do well with the Gaokao exams, new doors, new opportunities will be opened for you. But they also hate it because of the stress and the pressure building up, leading up to that very day when the test is taken. How do you remember your Gaokao experience? Do you more love it or hate that experience? Let me start with you, Li Xi.
Thank you very much, Zhongshi, for your question. Definitely it's a mixed feeling. But I want to take this opportunity to first briefly express to all the candidates of high school students, wish their best and in these 2 days Gaokao. And for me personally, it's been 15 years since I sat in my own Gaokao exams. I don't actually remember in specific what happened in those 2 or 3 days, but I remembered how long and how hard I had been preparing for those 2 or 3 days. It's definitely one of the most important period of my life, if not deciding, but very important to influence my path of education after the exam. I remember I was probably, especially the last year, the 3rd year of my senior high school, every day I spent most of my time study. I was the first one went to classroom and the last one to leave, and I was not alone. I have a great and a class of students who we're working together, and we fight every minute. We knew it was probably back to them the only chance that we can get access to our higher education. So to me, it was a life-shaping experience, if not deciding. I remember very vividly those days, the meaning of those days to me.
Malik, you represent a trend, a growing trend here in China, where students choose to have a college education abroad outside of China. You did take the exam, but only after you got an offer from an overseas university. What was it like for you?
Well, I didn't have to go through the whole process of Gaokao, but I still took it, and it wasn't a very delightful experience to be honest. But all my friends and my families, and some of my really close classmates, they have been through the whole process, and I can tell you it's a madness, and they're not only being tortured physically, but also mentally. They have to study like 15, 16 hours a day, only sleep like 3-4 hours a day, having no days off. It was a madness, and I'm really glad that I don't have to go through the whole process. But I mean, it's a fair game, but at the same time, it's not a very fun experience. And also, kids are learning contents that they will probably never use in their life. That weren't useful, and also it wasn't very practical as well. So I didn't really like it, and I'm glad I wasn't part of it.
If we look at the U.S. equivalent to Gaokao, the SATs, it's a hard test. Students prepare relentlessly for the test, but unlike the United States, students in China often take the whole family's hopes to the exam room. In many places in China, parents, even grandparents, would view Gaokao as the top priority and even give up their jobs to better take care of the students. How does it feel when your whole family's happiness is relying on you? If you were in the shoes of those students whose families' hopes are pinned on them, does it make a person stronger or weaker to have your family standing behind you, but with high hopes, Li Xi?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Well, that actually was my case. My whole family supported me, and I was very motivated. I was very self-motivated, but I also know that I need to work hard so that I would not fail my parents, but more because I understand the years in Gaokao. It's an experience if you're taking at the positive side of it. It's an experience of building one's self-discipline, of knowing that you must work hard to get what you want. And when I reflect those days, I think the impact to me is when you look at the positive side, it's not about specifically I learn what kind of knowledge. It's about cultivating myself a habit of working hard, cultivating myself a habit of managing my time well for different subjects. I think somehow that's also a skill to get adapted to the competitive society nowadays competitive society as well. And when I record those days, I think what I gain from those days is not exactly about a specific content of knowledge. And I worked, and through my work, my hard work of those days, I got rewarded because I get access to college, and I continued my education. My family was happy. But moreover, it's a fortune for me because only in that circumstance, I think would I work hard like that, because I understand that's my past and understand that's a cruel but somehow still nowadays a relatively equal chances for us to get our path to university education. But I also reflect because I'm an educator now. So the studies in those days is it really about education in terms of what I want for my life or career in the future, or it is about being adaptive to the system, to what the Gaokao asks to be able to get more chances. So it has its gains and has its loss, but still one could draw positive significance from this experience.
Malik, your take on this phenomenon, how do you explain it to your foreign friends, for example? Why is this not just the matter of the student in the question? Why is a whole family pitching in to help?
Well, you know what? I actually think a lot of families and a lot of people in China are over-evaluating this exam, and they're making this exam, making the students feel like this is the most important thing in their life. But however, are there a lot of people care about what happened afterwards? Do you know a lot of students actually, they were really motivated, just like what Lishi said. They were really motivated, and they were really hardworking, and they finished the exam, and then what? They had no other goal. You know, their parents told them that this is the only thing you have to work for. But after that, when they get into college, they do whatever they want. You know, rarely parents care about how their kids are doing in school after they went to college. All they care about is the exam. And what the real knowledge that you have to learn is in college, well, relatively useful. But a lot of kids are only working hard for this exam, and they think this is like, if you didn't do well on this exam, your life is set. It's actually not. People should like focus on the bright side. You know, like the Gaokao is not only the only chance that you can actually change your life. So I explained to my to some of my foreign friends that, you know, a lot of like some of the parents that probably haven't experienced a lot, they think this is the only way that they know that they can change their kids' life. So that's why there are so many parents and grandparents are working so hard for just only one kid to make sure this kid can get a good score and get into college. But you know, what happened afterwards is really matter. What you can do in college and what you learn is really matters to your life.
I think the way people think of Gaokao has been changing in the Chinese society, but for the vast majority of Chinese high school students, it still remains the only option, the necessary option, the must-take option for them after graduating. And with this importance attached to these exams, we've had some very extreme cases before. For example, in Changsha, in southern China, we had a case where a mother was hit by a car when she was escorting her daughter to take the Gaokao exam. The daughter was immediately faced with the choice of either going with her mother to the hospital or carrying on to the test room, and it just caused a huge debate about just how important the Gaokao was. And in this specific case, what would the choice be for the daughters? If you ever found yourself in that case, what would be your choice, Li Xi?
Well, thank you for that question, because it happens I actually come from Changsha, that area. And first I want to say I feel pretty tragic to hear the story, because at that moment I think a daughter probably would have to find some ways to assist her mother first, which would influence her Gaokao. And I remember back in my days, I was pretty independent. My family supported me, but they did not actually stay. I was at a boarding school, so they did not actually stay and provide me everything. I think that's a lesson that Chinese parents needs to learn, and Chinese children needs to learn as well, is that you're learning, however hard it is in the Gaokao, under the Gaokao pressure, your learning is your own business that you need to manage. Your parents provide you everything, but in terms of the details in your life about For example, you do not have to ask your parents. Maybe parents voluntarily wants to do this, but you somehow need to be a grown-up or independent person at that situations to comfort
we
your parents.
are running out of time here on the program. Before we go, I'd like to ask this to both of you. Lishi, you studied very hard for the Gaokao exam. You took it very wholeheartedly, not like Malik. Did you think that experience emboldened you, that experience empowered you?
Okay, I think that experience somehow empowered me, like in shaping my personality, as I said previously, about good learning habit and self-motivated learning and also self-discipline. I think they all work as a very good, let's say, fortune for me to continue my education in the future. But I also think that our Gaokao system needs to have more reform in terms of how can we maximize the flexibility under the system so that students could have more choices, and probably the school could also have more rights to select what kind of students they want under the current system. And the content of the exam already is taking some changes, but it needs further reform to make it more adapted to nowadays society and the requirement for talents. For example, not just from scores, but also about overall quality of students besides academic performance. I really think there's a lot of things that we need to deal with to make Gaokao into a more fair but also effective way to select the talents for universities in our country.
Lishi, thank you. And I'm afraid that's all the time we have for now. Malik Nabee, Internet personality, and Lishi, lecturer from Beijing Foreign Studies University. Thank you for your time.